Recently, I was looking at the map of African rail network and I found something that didn't make sense. Across the continent, cities are building rail. Lagos opened its first light rail line. Cairo had a metro since 1980s. Addis Ababa built one from scratch in 2015. But then I look here, northern Nigeria, a region of 80 million people, and there are no lines, nothing. Except, and this is what caught my attention, there is this one city right in the middle of the blank space that just had 1 trillion naira committed to building a rail network from scratch. This city is called Kano. It has more people than London. It is the hometown of the richest person in Africa, and it is one of the largest economies on the continent with zero rail transit. But when I started pulling at this thread, the story got so much bigger than a train. It involves a military coup, a landlocked nation, a 72-hour political deal, and a public accusation of, and I'm quoting directly here, pure deception. Let me explain this. To comprehend why 1 trillion naira is either a breakthrough or a deception, you have to see how this city actually works. This is Dawanau, the single largest grain market on African continent. Millions of dollars change hands here daily. It doesn't just feed Kano, it feeds supply chains across dozen countries. Around it, hundreds of factories produce textiles, leather, processed goods. 1,000 years ago, Kano sat at the center of trans-Saharan trade route, stretching Tripoli and Cairo. It still does. This is not a struggling city looking for aid. This is a major economy trapped inside the wrong infrastructure. 60 million people, more than the entire Netherlands, and every single one of them moves by road. No metro, no commuter rail, no tram, nothing. Every single person, every ton of grain, every bolt of fabric pays an invisible tax, the gridlock and bad road. When London built the underground in 1860s, it had 3 million people. Kano has 16 million and nothing. In January 2026, the Nigerian government promised to fix it, a full urban rail network built from scratch. But promising a railway and building one are two different things. Dubai had rail system in 2005. By 2014, it had one of the busiest driverless metro on earth. That was possible when money and the will align. What was announced in January 2026 is not just a metro system. On January 29, the governor of Kano State stood at the podium and announced that the federal government had approved a 1 trillion naira urban rail network. That alone would be the most significant urban transit investment in the history of northern Nigeria, but it's actually the smaller piece of a much larger system. There is a high-speed rail connection running south from Kano to Kaduna, 203 kilometers, already more than half built. When it's finished, it plugs into a rail spine that runs all the way down to Lagos and Atlantic coast. And there is an international railway from Kano across the border, nearly 400 kilometers into the Republic of Niger, designed to move 9,000 passengers and 3,000 tons of freight every day. A metro for the city, a high-speed line for the country, an international railway for the continent, 3 systems, 1 node. If all 3 are built, Kano doesn't just get a train, it becomes the most important logistic hub in West Africa's interior. But here is what makes that 3rd line, the international one, extraordinary. It crosses a national border into landlocked country of 29 million people that 2 years ago experienced a military coup and pulled itself out of every regional alliance in West Africa. We will come back to why that matters because the answer changes everything about this project. But first, to build that international railway, you have to cross one of the most hostile landscape of rail engineering on earth. And the biggest threat isn't what you expect. Sand. Northern Nigeria sits on what the United Nations classifies as the desertification frontline. Over 60% of the land in the region is severely degraded. Sand changes the geometry between wheel and rail. Fractions of a millimeter, enough to cause derailment, and in the Sahel, the wind that carries it never stops. If you followed the challenges of building railway across Saudi Arabia or Central Asia, you will recognize this, but the solutions here are fascinating. Along vulnerable sections of the corridor, workers plant checkerboard patterns of straw, low fences in grids that reduce wind speed at ground level. Sand gets trapped in the squares before it reaches the track bed. A technique refined on desert rail projects across China and the Middle East. Forest reserves along the route act as a natural windbreaks. The track is built to the same standard as high-speed rail in France and Germany, designed for 160 km per hour, and it has to survive a landscape that European rail has never had to face. Everything we've just described sounds transformative, but Nigeria has a complicated history with transformative promises. In August 2025, a train derailed on Abuja-Kaduna standard gauge line, one of the showcase projects of the previous decade. Investigators found systemic failures, CCTV cameras non-functional, safety switches operated by hand because there were no spare parts. This was a line that cost billions of dollars, built within 10 years, already failing. And that wasn't the worst of it. In March 2022, armed groups attacked a passenger train on the same route, killing at least 8 people and abducting over 60. The service was shut down for 9 months. In 2025, Nigeria's Senate launched a formal investigation into the country's standard gauge rail program. What they found was damning. Lines that cost billions in public debt were derailing within 2 years. Officials accused of gross incompetence. The country got less railway than it paid for. That is the institutional backdrop against which a state governor stands at the podium and announces a ₦1 trillion rail project. Nigeria operates a federal system where the central government controls most of the infrastructure spending. The governor of Kano had been in an opposition party. In late January 2026, he switched to the president's ruling party. Less than 72 hours later, he announced a ₦1 trillion rail approval. That international railway, the one crossing into country in political crisis, guess why Nigeria is building it anyway? In 2023, Niger's elected government was overthrown in a military coup. The junta withdrew from ECOWAS, the regional economic community governing trade across West Africa. It pulled out of the Joint Security Force and pivoted away from Western allies. So why spend nearly $2 billion on a rail link to a country in crisis? The answer is geography. Niger is one of the largest landlocked countries in the world. 29 million people, no coastline, every import, every export has to travel overland through another country to reach a port. Most of Niger's freight moves through Benin to Cotonou. Long, expensive, politically fragile, the Kano-Maradi railway offers a faster, cheaper route to Atlantic through Nigerian ports. In return, Kano becomes the gateway of Sahelian interior. The Sahel is home to over 400 million people, one of the fastest growing population zones on Earth. Whoever controls the logistic corridor into that region controls an enormous amount of trade, which is exactly what the African Continental Free Trade Area is designed to unlock. Nigeria calls this an investment infrastructure. In every meaningful sense, it's a geographical play, designed to maintain influence in a region where that influence is being actively contested. If all three systems converge, what emerges is something this region has never had: a modern transport network moving people and goods across city, a country, and an international border. But today, the Kano Metro line has no contractor, no design, no route, no timeline. The critics who called it pure deception may be wrong. Many mega projects begin exactly this way, with a political commitment that precedes formal procurement. That's how infrastructure gets started in federal systems, from Brazil to India. But in a country where billions have been borrowed and lines have derailed within 2 years, the distance between an announcement and a functioning rail is not measured in kilometers, it is measured in political cycles, public trust, and whether anyone actually breaks the ground. If you love definitive African infrastructure projects like this, please like and subscribe, and let me know in the comment section what you think the impediments of this project are. And if you like what I'm doing and you want to support me monthly, please hit the join button, and see you on the next one.